for melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. This is the Signals of Intuition. That was TNN, or Tooth and Nail, with the title track from their latest record, Slave to the Empire. You're listening to the Signals of Intuition, your home for melodic hard rock and heavy metal. Tonight on the show, we've got a very special guest. We've got the guitar player in that band, who you might know as the guitar player in Dokken, Lynch Mob, KXM, and many others, George Lynch. So let's get him on the show right now.
Great.
Hey, George, how's it going? So do you mind if we start by sort of talking about your early career and early influences and work our way up to KXM?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. Where did you grow up and how did you first come to pick up a guitar?
I grew up in Spokane, Washington, and moved around the country a bit. Started playing at 10. You know, I was exposed to Beatlemania. That got me into rock and roll. And then when, you know, Hendrix and Beck and Page and Clapton came along, that was it for me. You know, I was very fortunate to be growing up playing guitar at that time and having those guys as massive influences in my life. So, and so I started out playing classical and flamenco and jazz, and then, you know, very badly, of course, and then moved into blues and then rock. You know, it's just a slow, natural evolution.
Now, do you have any formal musical training, or did you just kind of self-teach yourself?
Well, I'm primarily self-taught, but I have had training. I mean, I used to go to little mom-and-pop music stores and take guitar lessons sporadically, and in my later years, I attended MI and those kinds of things. Not religiously, but I would dabble in it. Also, I would even answer, like, for instance, before the Lynch Mob, we did the Wicked Sensation record, I really wanted to get my chops up, and I answered an ad for a guitar teacher, you know, local guy, and I just showed up at his apartment, you know.
I'm sure that probably blew his mind, going, oh my God, the guy from Dokken is here.
He knew who I was. And it was like, he goes, are you kidding me? It was pretty funny, but I go, yeah, well, you know, I'm a guitar player, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and I want to get my right hand tightened up and, you know, get better at alternate picking, and I want to do this and that. And we became sort of friends for a while, and we'd hang out a lot. And that was very instructive, and actually my playing elevated quite a bit. And that's something I need to do, actually, again. I find myself sort of repeating myself, you know, so I need to sort of widen my horizons a bit, so learn some technique, because I'm not really a school player. I don't know theory, although I know a type of theory that I've sort of just have invented, I guess. You know? But I can't read music, and I don't really understand modes and you know, that kind of theory. But I have a way of looking at the fretboard and looking at music that it's all intervals, so it's all the same thing. It's just a different language, I guess.
Yeah, just enough to get by, kind of thing, eh?
Well, not even that. It's more like I couldn't go in and sight read at a studio at a session, for instance. No, but I've done lots of sessions, you know, and I'll go in and I can hear it, you know, and I have my own way of interpreting the language of that music. I mean, I you know, when they're rattling off, you know, complicated chords or time signatures and this, I don't get it, but I instinctively get it because I have my own way of understanding it.
Yeah,
it's just another path up the same mountain.
So how did you come to, jumping ahead a couple of years now, how did you come to land the gig in Dokken in the early 80s? From what I understand, you and Mick were playing in a band called Exciter at the time?
Right. Well, I mean, it wasn't really a gig, and there really wasn't a Dokken. Dawn had a band called Airborne, and we had a band called Exciter, as you said, and we were both in the LA area, and we'd play shows together invariably once in a while. And so he called me up one day and said he had an opportunity in Europe for a publishing deal, which may turn into a record deal. And I said, well, no, I'm all ears. So he liked some of these Exciter songs. So he said, would you be willing to have me sell those and we can make some money off of them and maybe that would lead to something? I said, sure. So he was supposed to come over to, myself and Mick were living together in an apartment. And he was supposed to come over and we'd talk about it and show him the song and this and that, talk about business. Well, I never heard from him again. Well, the next time I heard from him was, many months later. Apparently he went to Europe and he recorded these songs and he sold these songs as himself as the writer of the songs.
Oh, jeez.
Not me. So our names were nowhere on the contract, and he got $35,000 or something for it and spent all the money. And that was the beginning of our relationship.
So one of the songs that Dokken is best remembered for is Dream Warriors. And it's kind of funny, all the friends who know very little about rock music, and yet they'll know that track from the third Nightmare on Elm Street. Were you guys approached by the film's producers to write the song based on the movie?
Yeah,
or was it already written?
Our management company approached us and had the opportunity presented to them, or they sought it out. I'm not sure how that happened, but we had very wonderful management at the time, Q Prime, who managed also Metallica and Def Leppard and many other huge bands. And so they said, would you like to write a song called Dream Warriors for, well, they didn't say the name, but it was for this film, and the film was called that. So Don went to work independently, and Jeff and I worked independently. We're in different states, and we came up with the version that we ended up using, called the Dream Warriors, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an interesting deal. They just kind of bought us out. They paid us some number of thousands of dollars. It wasn't a lot, and it was a one-time buyout. And you relinquish all rights to the song forever, which is really dumb business-wise for us. Because after we paid our manager and paid everything else and the cost of recording it, there really wasn't any money to speak of left, and we never saw a nickel. But, it helped propel the band into notoriety a little bit, so that was good, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Now, from your perspective, what led to the breakup of the band in the late 80s? From what I understand, at the time, you guys had a huge record, critical acclaim, getting a Grammy and that kind of thing. What sort of led to the breakup?
Well, greed and ego, on one person's part in particular. And that's really the bottom line. There's nothing else other than that. The way it works in the record industry, especially at the time, was if you have a major record deal, which we had, and your sales increase exponentially from record to record, you're on this kind of upward trajectory. The label sees that, and that's what they like to see. And then when that occurs, and at the same time your contract is expiring, you're in the sweet spot. That's where you renegotiate. That's where you want to be, because then you go in for the kill and you make a deal, and you're set for life. You have a secure major record company deal. You negotiate this deal on your terms because you got a lot of muscle behind you, because you're negotiating from a successful standpoint, and they want you.
Yeah. And
this is where bands get their career changing. It's sort of a paradigm shift in your career at that point. You go from, we spent 10 years, 8 years, whatever, on the road, opening up for every major act there was. We worked really hard on our songs, really hard on our records, to build this brand and to get it out in front of the world for almost a decade. And then we got to the point of this critical juncture where we're up for renegotiation. This is where your manager comes in and makes a monster deal and, millions of dollars, and you're set. And all that hard work pays off. And this is what we were looking at. Well, one person in the band decided, I don't want to share this with these guys. I want this all for myself. So this one particular person took the risk of saying, you know what, I managed to trick the band into using my name for the band name, which none of them wanted to do. So now, and everybody's perception is that I'm the guy. So I'm going to take the whole thing and I'm going to keep it. And you guys, I'll hire you guys as my sidemen.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And he did that. And we lost our opportunity to renegotiate this deal that we'd all worked for. And it hurt. And he didn't succeed either, so we all lost.
Mm-hmm. And that's got to really kill momentum inside of the band. I mean, because you want everything to be equal, right? An equal partnership. Otherwise...
Well, that was the struggle. There was that battle. Because there was the three of us, and then there was this one other member who didn't really want to do the equal split thing, but the rest of us did, and that's the way we were always built. And we always stuck to that. But it was a fight. It was always a battle, because the singer wanted the lion's share of everything, even though he wasn't really the talented guy in the band. Look, if he was Frank Sinatra or Hendrix or some massive talent. Okay, I get it. You know, I'm a guitar player. You're the guy. So okay, but he wasn't. So it wasn't fair. So the problem with the whole damn inner politics is that I was the guy fighting the battles for the other two guys with Don.
Yeah.
That was really the problem. So I got labeled as the asshole or something, whatever you want to call it, because I would sort of, you know, fight the battle. You know?
Yeah.
And I should, now in my wisdom of older age, you know, I realized that I should have let these guys take some of the heat, but they always let me take the heat. And then at the end of the day, you know, it came back to bite me. But that was the struggle, and continues to be the struggle to this day. I mean, we've attempted reunions throughout the years, in fact, one very recently, and it's always that problem, you know.
So with that, I was going to say, with that hurdle in the way, do you think Dokken will ever see a proper reunion?
No, absolutely not. This is our last shot at it, and the three of us have always said, declared adamantly that it has to be equal splits. There's enough there to float all of our boats. We don't need one guy driving up in a Yugo and another guy driving up in a Ferrari, and all of a sudden there's problems, you know. We're all going to work really hard. Everybody's important, and there's enough money to go around. So we're doing this for other reasons, not just money, you know, hopefully for some closure and to make the fans happy and go out with a good record and go out there and slay it live and be good, those kinds of things. And those are the right reasons to do it for. And, of course, this one particular person didn't see it that way. And I think that person had maybe watched the Eagles documentary too many times and thought he was going to try or whatever, you know. No, dude.
Now, from after the first disillusion to Dokken, we got Lynch Mob, and personally, Wicked Sensation is one of my favorite things you've done. What can you tell me about the writing and recording of this album?
Well, you know, I knew I had the wind at my back, and I had the whole music machine behind me, you know, and so I had a shot at putting my ideal situation together. So we spent a lot of time and money on making it right, you know, finding the right members, you know, very involved auditions that lasted quite a long time, and really careful about picking who was in the band and the sound of the band and crafting songs over like a whole year, and went through many layers of processes to get that record finished. And, you know, 5 studios, 3 producers, spent over $500,000 on it. And it shows. You know, it's a record I think that stands the test of time for its particular genre anyways. And but it's sort of ironic that, you know, when you do a record that way, you'll never make any money off of it because you spend so much money making it. So that's the problem. You know, and then that would lead me to a comment about KXM, and I know I'm jumping decades here, but, you know, we've come to the point in our lives and our careers where obviously, you know, we're not spending $500,000 on records.
Yeah.
You look at this KXM record, which was done in a completely opposite way. We'd never played together. We hung out, and we thought, you know, let's do something. I mean, let's get in the studio and try something. And we did. And we spent very, very little money, and we'd never written any songs, and we just set up and we mic'd everything up and we wrote everything as we recorded. And in 10 days, we had a whole album.
To me, that just blows my mind, because I've made records in the past, and though, you know, I can't imagine doing something in less than, say, a month. To do it in 10 days is just... So you basically, when you had an idea, did you almost just record it outright on the spot kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, we didn't even bring ideas in. That was one of the rules, was that we couldn't bring any preconceived ideas in. So it was all a product. All the music is a product of us just improvising and jamming. And then we find a part and we go, oh, that's a cool beat, Ray, and Doug, that's a cool bass line. Him and Ray work out, you know, the intricacies of the, you know, what their rhythm parts are going to be for one section. You know, we do sections at a time, and then I come in with my guitar part, or if it start with the guitar part, they'd follow me. And then we think, well, where does this want to go? And, you know, usually I'm leading because I got the guitar in my hand, so I'm like, oh, I think how about this, you know? And try something else, you know, try something else. And, oh, that's cool. And Doug would think I could sing this over. And that's how the whole record was written, right on the spot. And we would tell the engineer, you know, because we were in a different room, and we would say, we were all playing together, you know, in one room. So we would say, you know, we would tell them, okay, we got it, we're ready. So tape this idea. And then we tape it, and we go, okay, well, I was a little sloppy, so let's get it tightened up. And we tighten it up, and then we'd move on. And then we'd go into the control room with the engineer, the wizard, and we would sort of piece it together. And we'd say, yeah, that flows, that's cool, if it did. And then we go back out, we'd relearn it, and then we'd play it tight, you know. So
yeah.
we'd usually we did at least one song a day like that. But sometimes 2. So in 10 days, we got 13 songs.
Wow. That's completely mind-blowing. So just sort of backtracking on KXM, how did the band form? Because at least on paper, that seems like sort of an unlikely match to get sort of the 3 members together.
Well, it doesn't seem unlikely to me. I mean, I don't know. We were just hanging out at Ray's house, and Ray's got a studio at his house. And so, we ended up in the studio, of course, and then we just started tinkering around. And we thought, it sounded cool. We were just like, I don't know if I'd want to record it here, but no offense, Ray, but still, we should follow up on this. And then it was like the next day we were all on it because, you live in LA. It's like, you run into guys all the time and you always have this conversation. We all really want to generally do stuff with each other, but most 9 times out of 10 doesn't pan out, for lots of different reasons. Your label has you captured or you're too busy. That's usually you're too busy and things like that, And so, but everybody got on it. It was weird. It was just like, Ray especially, it was just like, how can we make this happen? I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do this. So we rolled up our sleeves, and that was really the biggest challenge, was to find a way to get it done. I mean, time was really precious. I mean, we just didn't have much time to do it. And we found a window and kept losing that window, and things weren't available, back and forth and back and forth. It was on again, off again, on again, off again. Eventually we found basically this vacant house up in the Tehachapi Mountains, California, that was outfitted with a Pro Tools studio, and nobody lived there. So it's a nice 2-story house on 10 acres in the middle of frickin' nowhere. It was like a couple hours north of LA. So we just all drove up there with our sleeping bags and bags of food and our equipment, and we met. It was just the 3 of us and the Wizard, our engineer, who's phenomenal, and our videographer, photographer guy who was kind of documenting everything. What was it? Just the 5 of us, and we just stayed there for 8 days. And then when we disbanded and packed up our cars and we left, and we were just really excited. We thought, oh, this was so beautiful, so awesome. And then we realized we didn't even know how many songs we had. We go, oh shit, we don't have enough songs for a record. We got to go back. And we had to find 2 more days, which was even more difficult. We finally found those 2 days, and we just rushed in there. We knew the drill. We banged out 3 more songs, and that was it. And we get together to make videos and do photo shoots and interviews and stuff. But if we had met, and done this at an earlier point in our lives, we'd be a band that would like live together and tour together. But because we're all doing so many other things, it's very, very challenging to make that happen.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and we all feel that way. We're all just bummed, and we're like, we want to get out there, we want to tour, So we're trying to find some time to tour. So
the plan is you guys will get behind this and tour at some point. Now, do you have any plans for like a full-scale U.S. tour? Or are you just going to kind of do select dates here and there? Or?
It looks like the best case scenarios will have 2 months this year, 2 different 1-month chunks. And one of those months will be in the States, and the other month will be in Japan. And that's the best case scenario. And we will film it for a live DVD.
Oh, great. Do you think we might hear another KXM record?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We were on the set all last week doing 2 more videos, and that's all we talked about. It was like, and I've already got ideas. We were all thinking, and so the question came up. We've been talking about this. Is like, would we want to go a more traditional route and get a producer, or get into Sunset Sound or Henson Studios or NRG, one of the big studios, and actually do some pre-production and write the stuff, or do we want to do it the way we did it? We go, no. We go, absolutely, we're going to do it the way we did it. No ideas. That's the rule. We go in, we jam, we make a record, see what happens. And I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be so much fun. Mm-hmm.
Now, you're also involved with another project with Michael Sweet, James Lomenzo, and Brian Tichy. Is that album finished, and does the project have a name?
It is being mixed right now. I just finished the guitars. Michael and I wrote all the songs, and I just finished doing all the rhythms and the solos. They're working on the East Coast. I'm working here on the West Coast. So we work remotely. We've never been in a room together or anything like that. So the record is being mixed right now. We're going to be doing a video for it and photo shoots and all that kind of stuff later this year. Unfortunately, because of the backlog of other material we all got coming out, the record apparently is not going to be released till early spring of 2015, which bums me out because it's a really good record.
What sort of vibe is that going for? Is that more modern rock or classic metal?
No, it's really in that space that people know us most for, which is, the older music, the kind of 80s stuff. But the best elements of that, so it's still cool. It's not cheesy 80s.
Yeah.
It's got 70s stuff. It's maybe some little bit modern, not really much modern stuff. But, in other words, I'd get some comments from interviews I've read and stuff about this KXM record, and it's not really negative, but I've been hearing a lot of this language like, well, who is Lynch anymore? What happened to, Aquanet, stretchy pants? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do that anymore. It's been like 2.5 decades, and all the molecules in my body have changed, numerous times. I'm not the same person, but I'm just a product of who I surround myself with in my environment. So with Michael being the singer that he is, similar to Don in a way, I guess. That genre, that style, but in my opinion, I prefer Sweet's sound, his voice, and stylistically. But, very melodic, very Beatlesque, and, he can step on the gas a little bit when he wants, So that sort of dictated what we wrote. And so it just sort of went down this path that I didn't even know I could go anymore. And it is very good 80s, I guess I could call it, for lack of a better term. I don't even know how to describe it. There's a lot of other elements in there. There's stuff in there that's very Van Halen-esque, and there's some really beautiful songs that are more laid back and sound like they could have came out of the Nashville rock/new country machine. Not really country, but you know what I'm saying. They're just beautiful songs.
Yeah.
No matter what kind of music you like. I'm really excited about it. I wasn't going into it. I went into it kind of thinking, well, it's going to be this kind of older style stuff and whatever. But when we started finishing it, I was like blown away. I was like, you know what? And this is going to make a lot of people happy. Those people that I mentioned to you that were making possibly I don't know if it's a criticism, but making a observation that, maybe I had sort of ignored that part of who I was in more recent attempts at, creating records. This will make them happy because it's, I definitely turned up the heat on the guitar playing in a lot of spots, and the riffs are all there and the songs are really well put together. It's a really, really good record and a good sounding record.
Now, sort of jumping back, not really to Dokken, but one record I really dug that you worked on about a decade ago or so was Lynch Pilson. How did that whole record come about?
Well, Jeff and I were really the nucleus of the writing in Dokken. We had a thing. We had a chemistry. We really did. And we loved it. We just loved recording together, and writing together. We from the early Dokken days when we'd lock ourselves in some little stinky room, and we used to call it Scrotum Sound because we would not shower. We would just bring in food, and we wouldn't let anybody in. It was all secret shit. And we'd be in there for days, and we, write all these early Dokken records and stuff, the bulk of them. And we love the process, of working together. We just have a way of working together that's just so fun and so productive. So, and he lives very close to me. We live within a few miles of each other now, and we both have studios. So, we're both extremely busy, but we try to find time because we love each other and we love working together to just keep creating music, no matter what happens with the music. It's just it's sort of a, we got to get it out. It's a way we express ourselves, and we enjoy each other's company and this and that. So our first attempt post-Dokken at doing something like that was LP, and which I thought was just a profound record. It was beautiful. We worked really hard on that one. And then we did TNN, which is kind of the same thing, but we had guest singers, and we brought Mick in, so it's kind of Dokken, and this and that. We did some Dokken covers and all that. And in November, we start on a third one, Jeff and I, which we've already recorded 6 songs for, not the vocals, just instrumentally. But this time around, we're not going to have guest singers. We're going to have Michael Sweet replace Don. So it's basically Dokken with Michael Sweet replacing Don.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to change the name. Maybe we'll call it Neckon, which is Dokken backwards.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not.
So on the TNN record, why did you guys record several Dokken classics for that record? Was it to basically expand an EP into an album, or was it just, hey, let's update these songs?
Well, our thought processes were that we wanted to appeal to the widest possible group of people. And there is still that substantial audience that recognizes and appreciates and longs for Dokken music. So I think and that's why we did the redos, the re-records. And I think the songs were worthy of updating. I mean, in fact, the 6 songs I mentioned to you that we have slated and recorded for the next effort are substantially different than the original versions of the songs, especially like Just Got Lucky. Just Got Lucky, it's a completely different song. It's only Just Got Lucky in name only, and we really reinvented that tune, and that was fun to do. So, that's an attempt at bringing people along that would listen to it and go, for instance, they might have listened to the LP record and went, well, this isn't anything like Dokken, and this is like 90s, early 2000s kind of heavy rock, metal, whatever you want to call it. We want to hear these guys do that. The mistake I think we made on TNN, and we both talked about this, is we wrote those kinds of songs. We just write what we write now and the way we write together now. And then we put it on a record with re-records of old songs. So the 6 songs, the old songs, and the 6 new songs don't really fit together, So what we're going to try to do this time, and Michael Sweet is really, I think, going to make this happen, is the catalyst to make this happen, is that when we write, we're going to keep that in mind, so that everything we write, we're going to put that up against the old stuff and make sure that we want that to be on the same record. That it doesn't sound like 2 different records. That's the trick.
So what was sort of the impetus for getting guys like Ripper Owens and Sebastian Bach and Robert Mason and all them to join on the bonus, or not bonus, but covers essentially on that record?
To make it interesting and to perk people's interest, because, just doing redos with Jeff singing, maybe not that interesting, but I think it would pique people's interest, we thought anyways, to have these, really well-known singers come in and do their interpretation of those old Dokken songs.
Yeah, and I have to agree, that was actually how I discovered you, was someone posted, I think it was Ripper Owens doing Kiss of Death, and then immediately, made me go, okay, well, let's check out the rest of this material kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, with Ripper, which was, I love Ripper, and he's great, but, we didn't know that Ripper became Dio and wasn't Halford anymore. And we were really hoping for the Halford Ripper. And when he did the Dio thing, we were like, what is this? It was not what we wanted or expected. And we went back to him, and he just goes, that's how I sing now, man. I go, okay, love you, thanks, bye. But I really wanted the old Halford thing, I really wanted that, like this and that. That would have been ideal, I thought. And, maybe we should have just got Halford.
Now, before we sort of jump to the future and sort of what other things you might have going on, what's your current setup in terms of gear? What are you using nowadays?
Oh, it changes, by the project, by the week. You're seeing in my studio, I call it the Devil's Laboratory. I mean, I've got everything that I can get my hands on because I'm a gear fanatic. But I've got my standard stuff that I always start with, and then amp-wise, that's my Lynch boxes, my Randall Lynch boxes, and I always use 2 amps. And the other side of that is I always change stuff out. And my one big go-to default amp is my 68 Plexi, which is a few serial numbers away from Eddie's. It was built wrong at the factory, and that's why it sounds the way it sounds. And you can never lose with that amp. I've also got a Friedman Dirty Shirley, which is like an offset 64 50-watt Plexi. That sounds wonderful. I've got a Wizard that's really great. I've got a modified Diesel Herbert that I use for heavier stuff. I've got all kinds of stuff. Some of this tracking I've been doing recently with this other project, I've been using this old 1930s radio that used to be my practice amp. I converted it from a radio into an amplifier when I was a kid, and that was what I learned to play electric guitar on, and I've been using that with my Jordan Boss Tone, which is an old 70s thing, a 60s, 70s distortion box that plugs into your guitar. It's got 2 little knobs on it, plugs straight into your guitar. It's fuzz distortion, it's not an overdrive. But it's great, and when I plug that thing in, it's like going back in time for me, because I remember that sound. I'm like, oh my God. And it's very lo-fi and nappy and buzzy, but it's cool, So for certain things, I'll use that, And so I just play in there, I have all kinds of toys, and I love it. But my main arsenal, my main rig is my Lynch boxes and my 68 Plexi and a few other amps.
In terms of guitars, are you very ESP, or do you still sort of pick up anything like you do with the amps?
It's primarily ESP. I mean, my Tiger, of course, I play constantly on everything. My Telly, which is an ESP custom shop Telly, I use a lot. So a lot of times I'll do the second rhythm track with the Telly just to give it a little more openness and spank, you know. So I really like the country kind of guitars, like especially like a Telly with a single coil pickup into my rock rig, because it's kind of a unique sound, you know. It's hard to describe, but it's just a kind of that openness, that same kind of openness you hear like on an AC/DC, the guitars on AC/DC, you know, it's very clean, you know, it's not a dirty tone, but it's big.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten away from that ultra saturation that I used to use a lot of times. So, because sometimes less distorted is bigger. So, yeah, but I'm always learning, and I keep, you know, chasing that dragon. But yeah, I have other guitars too. I have a Les Paul that the ESP built me. I did a instructional video called Guitar Bible. It was my first instructional video I did in Japan back in the 80s. And the ESP company have this wonderful vintage collection, and they brought down an old Les Paul for me to use in that instructional video that was priceless, that I could have never afforded. But they let me use it in the video, and I fell in love with it. And they said, you know, we'll build you one exactly like that, with the exact wood they use, with the exact specs, with the right pickups. And they built it for me. And instead of saying Gibson, but in the same font, it says George, and it's called a Lynch Paul.
Oh, cool.
And I fool people all the time, and people look at it and they go, "Oh, nice Paul." Like, what year is that? I go, "That's a '59." And I've shown it to Slash, and he thought it was real.
Whoa.
They look at the name, and you just think it says Gibson because it looks like it says Gibson. And you really look at it, it says George. You know, it's got the same G and everything. So, yeah. So even guys that know don't get it sometimes. It's pretty funny, and it's wonderful. And it does a thing that none of my other guitars do. So when I'm doing rhythms, I did some stuff, actually, some lead stuff on some projects I'm working on, and I really wanted that Leslie West kind of vibe, or Brian May. You know, I'll go to my George Paul, you know, to get that, you know.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Clapton Woman Tone, where you go to the neck pickup and you roll all the treble off that back pickup and you cock the wah back and you just all bass, you know, that kind of thing. There's certain things I use it for that no other guitar can do.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you've got the new KXM record out, the sweet Tichy Lamenzo thing coming out, and TNN, as you mentioned. What else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, I've been working on a film called Shadow Nation for about 4 years now, and it's very, very close to completion. And it deals with Native Americans, indigenous people in this country, and other countries for that matter, and music. It's just been a passion project and something, you know, I had no business making a film or being involved in making a film. Learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, but hopefully it'll be watchable. We'll see. We're working really, really hard on it, and it's almost finished. And there's a band affiliated with the record called Shadow Train, and the band and myself travel around the country, and you know, seeking out all these adventures and playing music in remote places. So we camped out, we made our own food, you know, worked on a shoestring budget, and dealt with issues. And we've got Tom Morello in the film, Serge from System of a Down, Ted Nugent, Noam Chomsky, a Native American activists from back in the day that write songs with us and are on the record and are in the film. We have a 2 CD album coming out. It's finished, and it's a 2-part thing. So it's almost a prequel and then the current band. So the first volume of the record is us more currently. It's heavier, it's more in your face, it's kind of like Rage, you know, it's cool. And then the second CD is the one we did earlier, the record that we recorded a couple of years ago, where we were thinking it was more of just sort of improv, and it was very eclectic, and we did all kinds of music, from anything from honky tonk to space acid jams to 70s rock, you know, so it's a much more eclectic record. But we didn't want to make that the first record because we didn't want people to pop that in and go, "What the hell's Lynch doing now? Jesus Christ, honky tonk, are you kidding me?" Next, you know. So we put it as a prequel, made it as a prequel, made that volume 2. So after you've listened to the meat of what we do now, then you can go back and listen to what can arguably be considered more interesting stuff, and people may be more open to it. You know?
Mm-hmm. And I also read somewhere, I was just going to say, I read that you're also working on some sort of industrial project as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually, we did phase 1 with some of the programmers and engineers from Zombie and Nine Inch Nails, and I love industrial music. I'm in Ministry and Prodigy and Nine Inch Nails and anything like that. And I've always listened to that stuff and thought, God, I'd love to see myself in that context. I'd love to be in that band. You know? Because the guitars are, for the most part, you know, it's sort of an afterthought, you know, in that kind of music. It's synth-based and you know, loop-based and all that kind of stuff, which I love that stuff. But I'm thinking, how can I fit myself into that, but in an economical way, where I'm not getting in the way, but yeah, you know, just add a little more bounce to it and a little more evil to it, you know? And that's what I've been trying to do with this project. It has no name right now, but we're starting actually the last phase of the recording on the 21st of this month. We're going in for another week and a half, and we're going to finish it up. And I'm not sure where it's going to lead us, but I'm just getting off on it because it's just monstrous, really interesting and a lot of fun and challenging, you know, because it's something new for me. But at the same time, I'm also working concurrently on this other project called The Infidels, which is the rhythm section from War. Sal and Pancho from War, they're just veterans, monster groovers, and it's very kind of heavy Latin rock funk. I'm a big funk fan. I mean, just, you know, blues and funk and R&B. I just, you know, and again, it's like the industrial thing. It's something that I'm not known for, but I love doing. And it's a whole different animal. And again, we got into a studio in Hollywood and we just jammed, and we got all this beautiful music out of it, and we're just kind of fleshing it out and finishing it up. We have one particular song that went on for 17 minutes. I don't know how we're going to market that. It just kept evolving, and we were like, don't stop the tape. This is cool, whatever. And it never went back to the original song. It just kind of turned into this whole other animal. It just kept changing, and it was really neat. It just brought back, you know, I mean, because that's the way I grew up, was just jamming, you know, in the 60s and 70s. That's all they did, was they just improvised, you know, in front of an audience. And it was great. And I still love it to this day. That's what I love to do, you know, just go out there and see what happens. We used to try to do that in Doc, and Don used to hate it, but, you know, Jeff and Nick were all into it, you know, and we go out there. I go, just, when it comes to this part of the song, I'm just going to throw something out and just follow me, and let's just go for it. If it falls apart, it falls apart. I love that, you know. Sometimes the crowd wouldn't get it either, but I'll play the hit. Fuck you. This one's for us. But yeah, so the Infidels project is very political as well. So the vocals are partly in Spanish, partly in English. It's hard to describe music, but I'd say it's got an element of Bandit Gypsies in there too, because we're all big Hendrix fans.
Okay, yeah.
So we tried to incorporate that. Interesting amalgamation of different ideas, but it's very natural. It's just what happened when we got together. So yeah, Infidels, the Industrial Project, the Michael Sweet, Lynch, Lomenzo, Tichy project, the new TNN with a new name, not sure what we're going to call it. We got the KXM out there right now, and I'm sure I'm missing Shadow Train, Shadow Nation, the film. Got a few things in the pot right now. So.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's like you just sort of sit there and go, what's Lynch up to nowadays? And it's just like, whoa. You know, it's just unreal.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like you can't put a lid on it when it wants to get out. You know what I mean? It's like you have an obligation to step up when, you know, nature calls, you know. You really have to. I mean, that's what our job is to be a conduit for this stuff, you know. So, because sometimes, you know, it isn't happening. You know, sometimes you kind of sit there and forcing it, and I dread those periods in my life where I feel, you know, compelled. You know, it's necessary that I come up with stuff, and I'm not feeling inspired. And so when I'm feeling inspired, I have to get to work, you know, and capture it.
What a great note to go out on, by the way. All right, George. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out to do this interview.
Thank you. It was interesting. It was very interesting.
And I just want to tell you off the record that, you know, as a fellow guitar player, you've been a tremendous influence on me in the past. So thanks for all the music over the years.
Yeah, and then what happened? I get that all the time. People are, oh, you were such an inspiration to me. Yeah, and then well, what happened? I'm kidding. Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate that so much, man. Well, thanks, bro.
All right.
Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much, George. Bye-bye.